What is up, traders, and welcome back to another live. Currently, we are trying to trade here the overall triple Qs and the SPY. On the day, the market is kind of strong. We are up pretty much a little bit more than 0.12%. The SPY a little bit weaker on the day. Mostly, we're seeing the strength here on the overall triple Qs, not on the overall S&P 500. We are seeing here for today's trades, we're seeing Palantir, Nvidia, Apple, Amazon, and AVGO or Broadcom. The majority of these are doing pretty well. Actually, the volume is not so bad. We have the highest volume here being achieved by Nvidia by so far 58.2 million shares here on the day. But something I really want to reiterate here is that the market is indecisive right now, where that's why we're seeing this choppiness here on the current day. I'm on the 5-minute chart of the overall triple Qs, as you guys can see, and plotting anchored VWAPs from important highs and lows. We're seeing that we are kind of within this range, and it's showing that there's indecisiveness, right? We're not seeing that momentum neither towards the upside nor towards the downside in the market, and that's why we're seeing this consolidation. What I like to see in order to be fully long again on the market right now, I'm kind of taking a pause here on the trades, would be some type of movement like this. So we see that we found buyers, and we kind of try to get above this, you could say, this dynamic area of resistance, this red line here that you guys are seeing on my chart. If we kind of zoom in a little bit more here on the chart and kind of get a little bit more of a deeper feel for the market, we're seeing as well that the 50 MA, we're kind of ranging in between that, right? So as well, it's also showing indecision in the markets, and we bid up, we find resistance here at this high here, right? And then we go back down, we bid up, we find resistance again at these highs, and we're doing the same thing over and over, right? So what I would like to see here on the market would be that now we're seeing this is an important decisive level here, right here. Okay, so it looks like an important area of resistance, so we will put that as red. So we got an alert there, but we'll put it as red, and we would like to see would be the following type of price action. We'd like to see some type of movement like this. We'll put this as green to signify the buyers, breaking above, and finally having some type of break above this area here of $553 here on the triple Q, and that would instantiate the long side with a higher high being formed after this break and a higher low being formed around here, which would instantiate now some upside momentum, and with us having the price targets here towards $563 here on the triple Qs, right? But right now the market is just consolidating. On the other side though, if we do see some breaks, so what I mean by that is if we kind of delete this here, this illustration, we see the market here with some negative news, right? And we managed to break below there. Actually, we should label this as red to signify some some sellers. So we see this type of movement, right? And we see this, and we fail below this area of support here of $549. Then that would instantiate a lower high and move us towards possibly this next area of resistance here, which would be the $546 area. Obviously, right, this all depends on what the market does. When we see the market or price action kind of between these anchored VWAPs or in between here the overall EMAs, right, it just shows indecisiveness, and this could go either way, right? So if it does go this way, breaks this area of support, then we would possibly see more downside continuation of the triple Qs here towards $546, right? But on the contrary, like I said, if we see intensive movement towards upside here, 553 break, it would instantiate the upper momentum, which allow us to get fully in the stock here towards upside right there, and we can target the highs of 557, right? So now that we know that the overall market is in a choppy range and is indecisive, we can know that the majority of stocks will be in that way. So looking as well, we also look at the SPY, same thing, right? We're in the chop zone, so I believe a break above $622 would allow us to break and continue the long side. If we break below, let's say 619 right here, then it's a short. But looking, for example, at Palantir, right, the names have been ranging on the day since the open. It's just been ranging, right? And we don't like to be within these range as a day trader, especially because the market just doesn't allow us for the trend. Especially, I mean, if you are more of an options trader but looking, for example, at trader, then it's most likely that you'll see the profitability, right? But something we want to reiterate here is that when the market is in a range, it's very difficult to kind of gauge, and you're very limited here on your entries, right? The overall market is giving you a lot of indecisiveness, and you're not pretty much remaining in the trend or in a trade for a long time, right? You're mostly out not more than an hour, 5, 13, 30 minutes. Here towards upside. So yeah, Palantir is kind of indecisive. If we kind of zoom out here on Palantir on an hourly chart, we're starting to see now that we may be starting to slowly curl up towards upside. It's been holding all these dynamic areas of support here, which have been VWAPs from important highs and lows. But if we take that out, right, and just factor out the current price data, okay, so we saw an important low formed here on July 1st, and we're seeing an important high, so we kind of want to factor that in. And you guys can see we're kind of pinching in that. We're breaking above it now, and it looks like it's looking bullish, but it kind of found some resistance at this area of resistance right here that you guys are seeing right here. And we would like to be fully long Palantir. If we break here like this, instantiate towards upside like that, that would instantiate the upper momentum on Palantir. We can obviously target towards the highs of 148, etc., etc. Always want to look here at what the longer term chart is telling us here on Palantir, and it's also now it would be recuperating finally above the 50 MA, showing that intense upward momentum there. Looking at Nvidia, the overall AI leader, I was looking today at a 159 break, but 85, but looks like we're not seeing it today. We're seeing a little bit of indecisiveness. If we kind of take this off, we are holding a little bit here. We had, for example, if we zoom out here, we had some support here at the 50 EMA on the longer term, so it's kind of important to graph that. We've been holding support here on this VWAP of 158.20. It's quite nice to see that, but we're finding some type of resistance at this high. I would like to be long, like I said, at the 159.78 break, which would instantiate the upside momentum. We can see that there. We're seeing some resistance. We might see some break of that level, maybe some retest, right? Doesn't exactly have to do like that, but it would instantiate that upward momentum that we'd like to see to target the 164 dollar level right here, the price target that we have here for Nvidia, which I'm really bullish on this name long term. You guys know this. You guys seen my videos, my deep analysis breakthroughs here on the daily analysis of Nvidia. Here the majority of the max 7 names and the leaders in AI and especially data infrastructure with cloud, and also as well really bullish on Amazon as well with AWS. I'm really bullish on the outlook here, but right now we're talking about intraday trades, for example, swing trades, etc., etc. But that would pretty much be my long signal here on Nvidia. And we don't want to go against the trend, right? The trend is obviously towards the upside on the longer term. We are holding above the 50 EMA, and we're also holding above the 200 EMA. We can just put that out. That's a confirmation, a little bit more of a lagger, but we've been holding above that quite well. It's this black line that you guys see. It's a 200 EMA, kind of made a little bit thicker so you guys can see that there. But we're pretty much bullish. We haven't even only time we came back was that dip of 153. Bounced off it, we found support. Now we're looking for some continuation, but kind of within the range right now. But further upside of that 159 break around here, like I said, you guys know that would be the instantiation for the long side again, a re-entry, and targets towards $164 here on Nvidia. Looking at Apple, one of the biggest names here, it's been heavily there's been some sentiment here kind of differentiating on the stock. It's been heavily criticized. If we kind of take analysis and kind of zoom out here of what the stock has been doing, we've been seeing that it was kind of below the 200 EMA for quite a while, as well as the 200, and then we kind of saw some bounce here on April 9th here. Obviously the pretty much the majority of the stocks saw that bounce, the pretty much recuperation of the Trump tariffs. We saw a bounce, but we're not too far off from it, right? We saw a bounce at 174, and we've been going up ever since then, right? We're actually up a little bit here. See, 174, around $30, right there in the money, you could say. But if we kind of zoom out, we're in a range, right? You see these, so we kind of bid up, kind of within this overall range that you guys can see here on Apple. We go up, find resistance here, we bid down, find support here, and we just keep doing the same thing over and over, right? Eventually we're finding, you know, higher high here, may see a potential break above, which would instantiate some long side here. But, you know, using VWAP and, you know, kind of from this high here, we're above that. That was a bullish entry here, 204. We're kind of seeing this now again, so maybe some type of movement here, you know, that it would instantiate the break of this $214 level. Would be fully long here on Apple, targeting, you know, the next area of supply, which would be here, the 225. We'll put that as red. So you guys don't get confused. That would be the next area of supply, and possibly if we do see the upward momentum, it would be towards 241. But obviously, this all depends on, you know, the investor sentiment, and, you know, Apple's been heavily been criticized, you know, by being seen as behind in AI race, right? Google's been developing their own AI. You know, we've seen with Gemini the special offers they have here towards especially students, and I think, you know, they're really trying to cater towards that younger audience. Especially as also by offering the free version, they're getting that extra demand, and, you know, people are slowly starting to see that Gemini is pretty good, right? Compared to ChatGPT, I firmly believe ChatGPT is number one, but Gemini is closely catching up. Right now, they're slowly integrating, for example, AI mode within the browser searcher on Google Chrome, and assistance on Gemini as well through emails and all that, etc. It's you know, just increasing the productivity here of the overall users here for Google, and, you know, I believe there's further upside, right? But if only Apple had some type of catalyst here involved with their AI here. We know it's kind of late for them to kind of develop their own AI specifically. They're most likely to use maybe, you know, Anthropic, or I think there was news on that they're going to use that to train Siri and just make it better, because comparing Siri to these now large language models, it's so behind. It's, you know, it's sometimes frustrating because, you know, Siri doesn't even understand the basics of commands. It's very frustrating here, so that's why Apple hasn't been really favored. But I believe if we see that break towards upside, then we will see bullish continuation here on Apple. Going now towards Amazon here, really bullish name. I've been extensively bullish on the long term here. We actually found some support areas, but it's our prior areas of support here. Obviously, you know, we had a sharp downward move. We saw the April lows, and you know, investors just picked up the name, right? Because the fundamentals are adding up. We're seeing Amazon down a little bit on the day because Amazon Prime Day started, but, you know, there was like a 14% decline over the beginning hours of Amazon Prime. But I'm not really too worried about that on the longer term. I believe, you know, Amazon is really more than just a retail name. They're developing their AWS, their cloud. So I believe that AWS is going to increase and be a major part of the revenue for the future. Really bullish thesis here on Amazon. But looking this on an overall longer term chart, we are still bullish, right? Why are we going to say that we're bearish? We're well above the 50 EMA, well above the 200 EMA, and we actually came back, found some buyers here. As you guys can see, we came back, found buyers here, right? Example, same thing here around this area. Remember, it doesn't have to be exactly an exact support area or level, just around that general confluence zone where buyers may come in, right? And looking at it now, if we kind of, you know, graph where the buyers are at, that's where we found support today here. So that anchored VWAP, we're kind of seeing some rejection here, some resistance. So, you know, a break of 224 would be the long here on Amazon. If we do decide to pull back, we break below this VWAP here of 200 and let's see, I think it's 218.67. So like I said, if we do break, you know, find some sellers, we do break below this, then the next area of support is going to be towards the 200 EMA, which is not too far here from the price action. But, you know, I'm really bullish on this name, especially on the daily. On the swing trade, I actually made it towards, you know, the trade of the week here on the Uplift Markets newsletter. By the way, feel free to subscribe to it. It was a trade of the week, you know, because of the fundamentals growing strong. We expect a very nice earnings beat over the upcoming earnings, especially in AWS sector, and some growth in that area. Right here, let's see. Yeah, pretty much it's bullish. It's well above its 200 EMA, 50 EMA, and it's seen that intense upward momentum. The next area of resistance we may encounter is going to be most likely towards this 228 here, based off this prior area, maybe the 220, 235, and obviously the all-time highs here of 242, right? But Amazon has a long way to go, and it's pretty early, and kind of get a little bit of a analysis here. It's actually up on the day. I think we can kind of see the stats here. Let's see. It's actually year to date, it's down a little bit, but on the 1 year over change, it's up 10%, which is not bad here. And their financials are looking pretty good here. We're seeing the revenue, their income statement quarter over quarter kind of decreased a little bit. But if you look at this annually, nice steady uptrend right here. The fundamentals, which are backing up the thesis as well, right? And I really like when the technicals add up to the fundamentals. It's just an extra buy signal here for the equity. Looking at Broadcom. This name is at all-time highs, intense upward momentum here. Let me just clear this up for you guys here, so you guys kind of get a better idea here. Let's see, kind of do this. Okay, so we've been holding quite well. The trend shift was around here, April 24th. We saw the price finally above the 250, but looking at this now, we've been going up. Seeing strong upper momentum. The stock has been, holding above the 50 EMA quite well, above the 200 EMA, this black line, as you guys can see. And, we're now starting to see maybe some accumulation here around this zone. We had some strong decline here on, I believe it was Monday, June 3rd, 25, the year here. And if we kind of, gauge some, being realistic, we found support exactly at the 50, and we bounced off there, right? And now we're kind of consolidating. It's actually strong on the day. It's actually up 0.18% here, which is not bad. It's not negative, but something I really want to reiterate here is that this short-term pullback, it can be measured here. So it's looking, kind of, above it. It's kind of looking bullish here. So I'm expecting more upside movement here on AVGO. Obviously, if we use some Fibonacci's, we have from price movements up towards 290 to kind of gauge the Fibonacci's. We have room to go all the way to 287. That's why I believe that the next area of resistance will be found there on AVGO. And just looking at the daily, absolute amazing name. It's been bidding up like the majority of these overall tech names ever since the dip that we saw in April, which was honestly a very good buying opportunity. And I think I reiterated on my videos that obviously the tariff numbers were, I would say, economically they weren't feasible for the amount of time that they were going to be proposed or they're going to be implemented. So obviously it was kind of, I can kind of say, BS. And that's where we eventually saw the dip, and that's why I said buy the dip. Don't worry about the news, right? Just buy the dip, especially strong tech names that aren't really going to be impacted by tariffs. Especially like the Netflixes, right? The Netflix is mostly tech. They don't have a physical product as per se, and probably won't be implemented or affected by the tariffs. And we've been seeing the stock going towards all-time highs. They've been seeing intense upward momentum. And something I want to reiterate here is, if you kind of look at, let's say, for example, let me just pull this up here. For example, let's see if I can get it. So looking at, for example, the financials of the overall company, for example, looking at AVGO or looking at Netflix. See if it comes in here. Okay, looking at Netflix here, we see their overall fundamentals, right? But what I really care about here is their financials. So we go towards the financials area, and we see obviously a company that has increasing revenue is something we want to be buying on the long term, which is very good. It's been going up steadily, right? We're now at 40.2 billion here. Operating income has been increasing, and it's been that upward trend started in June of 2023. Their net income also increasing, so they're profitable. They're becoming slowly there's profitability. The revenue, like I said, the gross profit, $19 billion here. Important fundamentals here. I hate when it makes me ask this, but something I want to reiterate here is their cash flow statement. It's towards the downside, right? But they've been really heavily invested in all these films they've been producing, and surprisingly, they're profitable, which is something we want to see. If you look, for example, at their oh my god, gotta sign in, I guess, but their free cash flow as well, it's something to take advantage of here, to closely look at here on Netflix. And it's been upward momentum, and I'll keep reiterating here that these names were the ones that were heavily bought by institutions after the intense downward dip, right? There's no reason to be bearish on Netflix, if it's going to be a tariff imposed negative news, right, it's not going to be impacted, right? There's pretty much on the product, possibly the consumer, but we've seen the resilience of the consumer with, strong, labor market, unemployment going down, right? So it's showing there's still resilience in the consumer. There's people with their jobs, so they're most likely to pay for these extra discretionary services as per se, right? So really bullish on that name. But let's see, looking at Tesla, very, very surprising name here, to be honest. You guys know I did analysis. Feel free to watch my video that was posted yesterday. I did a deeper analysis on Tesla. I was looking on a longer term time frame and key areas I wanted to look for. Because it's been in the news quite recently, right, with Elon Musk threatening to create that new political party. We saw that post on X where he polled users, and the majority of them said yes, right? So it's kind of challenged overall government and Trump's status quo here. So on the overall 1 hour chart, we kind of want to zoom out, filter out the noise. It's actually doing quite well on the day. It's up 2%, almost 3% on the day, which is quite nice to see. But something I want to reiterate here is that it's been bearish, right? We take these EMAs out and stuff like that. We are below the 50 EMA. We are below the 200. So generically, it is bearish, right? We're just seeing some type of bounce here on the day, most likely because we're seeing the RSI that the stock is being as per se oversold. So looking at this name here, for example, let's look at this, okay? So an important high was this intensive volume that came in, so we can structure that, and that's where the next area of resistance is, right? As long as we're below this, Tesla is bearish. Well below that, we also had an important kind of bounce here, a little bit of a rally that we found that resistance there. So measuring this momentum as well, we're below that, and look how the levels form confluence. They match exactly at this level of 317. Which just reiterates here that it's an important area of resistance that Tesla has to break through, or that buyers have to significantly, surpass the overall supply that's going to be located at this overall zone, also coming in confluence with the 200. So there's a lot of resistance at that zone there of right at 316, 317 here on Tesla. So if we keep seeing, that bounce that we've been seeing over the next couple of days, we may encounter here, pull back a little bit. But if we actually close above these VWAPs here, so something like this, if we actually so we keep, let's see, I'll put this as green so you guys can see that it's the buyers kind of representing that here. So we see this upward momentum, we dip down, right, and we bid up, right, but we're gonna find some resistance here. I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla pulls back a little bit, right, and continues. But if there's buyers, then they'll slowly start to pick up the name, and it will see that upper momentum back above this prior high anchored VWAP and back above this prior area of resistance, which would be around there, about the 319, right? So that would show us that maybe there is some bullishness here in Tesla, and buyers were serious enough in picking up the name. They've been that would show that they've been buying around these zones, right, these areas of demand, right? And we want to be within those buyers, right, with the overall trend, and instantiate the momentum as well towards upside. But if we do see that rejection, then Tesla is looking bearish for me. I'm generally not looking to trade it on the intraday. I still believe the stock is broken. It's not seeing any type of momentum either towards upside or downside. Also as well, it's kind of confusing a trade, to be honest. Seeing a lot of indecision here. For example, looking at on the daily, like I said, just evaluate my video, you guys can see that. I mean, if Tesla breaks below this 274, then we will go towards 220. I reiterated that quite heavily in my video that I posted yesterday. Feel free to watch that and give it a like. But if we do break above then the 357, then it's now showing that we made a higher high, like this depiction here, also above that level, that would allow us to be long and obviously go towards the next areas of resistance. But there's still a lot of things that should happen for the setup, right? But right now Tesla is not looking too good either. Kind of found obviously some buyers here on the earnings. We bid up, but the sellers have been intense, right? This name has been heavily shorted. We tried to form another high again, but this high came lower than this high, right? So we're seeing a lower high, so this could be just another downtrend initiating here on the daily here of Tesla, which is something that we don't want to see here if we're bullish on the name here. So yeah, quite bearish on that. Let's see, looking at let's see, 1 hour chart. Yeah, very indecisive. Microsoft on all-time highs here, very strong momentum. It's been continuing like this ever since the earnings. We've been haven't even pulled back towards that earnings anchor to VWAP pretty much that date that we had it. Kind of some sellers were in control, but we've been holding quite well above that ever since the earnings. It's 463, and we've been holding above the 50, right? Compare this to Tesla, holding above the 50, holding above the 200, showing significant there movement. And I think Microsoft's been heavily favored because of their investment in OpenAI, recognizing that it was going to be a powerhouse, you can say a leader here in the overall LLMs. And I think this would really benefited. Obviously, OpenAI is a private company. It's not publicly traded, but I feel like investors are seeing that this is kind of a way to get exposure to OpenAI indirectly. That's why I believe we've been seeing this strong upper momentum, and also you add on top of that their very strong earnings that they had. Cloud coming in, exceptionally well growth here on their Azure, especially. So yeah, looking really bullish here on the hourly. If we kind of zoom out on a 5-minute chart, it's kind of been consolidating, right? It's been having some downward move, but on the day it's been consolidated, right? And the majority of stocks are consolidating because, like I said, the triple Qs and the overall SPY are taking a pause. There's indecisiveness. We don't know where to go yet in the market. We may see these current up and down days, but I see no benefit in trading these days that show indecisiveness and don't show that exact trend, neither towards the upside nor towards the downside, right? Let's see, looking at Google on the day, this one's been selling quite heavily over the past couple of days. I remember here it broke below this 178 level, sold off yesterday, right? Also now below the 200, found resistance actually here today, below the 50, so it's not looking too good for Google. We're seeing a bounce here off the 172, which I believe it's a pivot point, but yeah, we may find resistance there. If you look at this on an hourly chart, kind of looking at that, it's been strong, you can say that. Here on Alphabet, but we're kind of weakening, right? When we have the 50 MA kind of being crossed down, it kind of showing that the buyers are kind of losing the momentum, right? And what that means is that the trend is weakening, and we only have an area here. We hopefully want to see some support here, obviously some type of hold at this $172 level. If you use an anchored VWAP plot, important lows, that's where we're finding the support actually right now. That's where we're finding the bid. If you find the next area of resistance here, that level matches exactly, so kind of nice to see that. Also, you're seeing some resistance, so I believe a break of 178 would instantiate some upper momentum, and this could obviously be played through options here on Google. So I think a break there, some bids down, and then some movement like that would allow us to show that there was support here. The higher low would be formed exactly right there, and upper momentum would be seen on Google, right? Let's see, but yeah, it's kind of weakening a little bit here on the name. It's been selling. Meta quite strong, very heavily favored by investors. What I really like about this name is the leadership, right? Mark Zuckerberg has been no remorse in getting top talent from OpenAI as well, from these important companies, especially from Apple as well. It's been collecting a lot of top talent to overall lead, be the leader in AI here. And I believe with that intent, they have a lot of potential upper momentum here, especially on the longer term, investing here with their invent here of actual intelligence that can think for itself, right? Not just it's the leading, right? We've been having LLMs, and then it's leading towards now AI agents, agentics, and then from that it would be the agents think by themselves, like actual individual people that execute not based off command or direct. It already knows what to do. So that's where we're going slowly here in the AI infrastructure, And Nvidia is going to be obviously a leader. AMD slowly starting to catch some market share, obviously, right? But Nvidia is projected, I believe, to obtain have an EPS here of $6 by 2028 projection, right? Obviously driven by their overall chips here and their overall infrastructure. Very, very strong here on Meta. And yeah, it's looking bullish. Right now we're pulling towards the 50 MA, so we may see some buying here. But I believe, a 730 break right there. Yep, 730 break would instantiate the upward momentum again. Probably pull back there. That would add towards a confluence. We've been seeing the VWAP slowly starting to curl up, and that would add towards a long side. Really bullish on Meta, especially on the longer term. Kind of take this off here. Let's see. Let's look at Bitcoin. I know you guys been saying a lot about Bitcoin, and well, what my outlooks here are on Bitcoin, and looking at this on a daily chart, that's where we want to see it. Let's see. You guys see my past live streams. You guys know that I called out this important area of support, which could have been a buy here at 100,000. You're coming back to that level, and also formed confluence with that 50 EMA, which added, honestly, to me, the confidence that this was going to hold above 100,000. As we know, it was a very important resistance level prior, but now acting as support, which is quite nice to see. We've been touching this once, twice, thrice here on the day, and we kind of want, we're consolidating, right? If we use the basics of technical analysis here and kind of project the upside move here on Bitcoin, so looking at this on a daily chart, we are obviously above the 50 while holding that above the 200, which is quite nice. But let's see, we had a strong upper move. So the move was instantiated here from the beginning of this low towards this, right? From April all the way to the upside, right? So factoring that in, using, let's see, like that, all we're seeing right now is kind of, some consolidation, some type of flag, right? So we'll maybe see that. And if we project towards the upside, so measuring this move, as you guys know, basic fundamental and technical analysis tells us that when we see a flag or some type of, a strong upper move and just some consolidation of price action, we measure the length of the pole, right? So we're measuring here from this low towards the top. So $35,000 movement towards the upside before we started to consolidate. So I believe at the break of, let's say, this high here of the flag here of 111,000 here on Bitcoin, project the same amount. So kind of measure that. Doesn't have to be exact, but we kind of measure. Let's see if we can measure that. Looks like it's not like that. Okay, so measure this around 36,000. We can say that. Okay, so we come back down, right? I mean, measure from the break 36,538. So you go up 36,000, 36,000. That we can say around there. So the price target based off this to here for Bitcoin is going to be towards $148,000 here. If we manage to break above, that would be overall the next upward move. The price, obviously, the asset would have enough momentum to go towards that upside, possibly 130, probably pull back, and then that final overall level towards 150. We may find some short-term resistance here at 130, but there's a lot of projection towards upside here on Bitcoin, and I'm really bullish on this name, right? A longer term, I believe that this is the future here as well of it's going to replace slowly fiat systems, and it's faster execution, and especially with the development here of quantum computing, it's only going to become safer, and it's kind of it's pretty much the future. I'm really bullish on Bitcoin. I can go pretty much all day explaining why here my bullish thesis, but yeah, we're still seeing momentum here towards upside. So 130,000 is my first price target here on Bitcoin. Second price target you guys saw right now is towards this 148,000, so we can say pretty much round it off towards 150,000 here around this zone is my overall final price target here so far on Bitcoin there, right? So obviously depends if we do break above here, then that would happen, right? So it's just a matter of time. Kind of have to wait here on Bitcoin and when it does. Looking at SMCI, very strong name. I believe this name is setting up for possible swing trade. Kind of look at this name. It's been seeing some buying, some upper momentum. If we look at this, obviously, I remember this during the AI hype. We saw this bid straightly towards the top, actually a year ago, and it's been heavily shorted. We actually had a split, right? It was around $1,200 here. Kind of like Nvidia, but then it declined, and then we saw the negative news that they weren't complying with their pretty much financial statements. It was all this litigation, etc., which drove the stock down, and we kind of been consolidating since November. We've been seeing this. We've been seeing a strong bid up, find resistance exactly at that point from the anchored from that high, because sellers that came in at this high, like I said, are still present, and that's where we found the resistance. So we're seeing now this bid up, and we're now above the 50 EMA, and looks like above the 200, this black line. So if we manage to see some support, we may find some resistance here at 550 here, may pull back, but to be fully long, I'd say SMCI would be a break above $66, which would instantiate the upside. So you may see that, and it would finally break above this prior high that was failed, because that led towards the downside. And this could obviously be targeted now above this 66 break towards the next area of resistance here towards $96. And 101, obviously depending on what the overall market says, the overall macroeconomic news here, but it's looking very bullish. And if this does happen, then yeah, I'm bullish. But as long as it remains below here, we shouldn't be able to move up, or honestly, I wouldn't even touch the name. If we still keep remaining below the red anchored VWAP of $54.81 here, pretty much on SMCI. Let's see. Yeah, that's weird. That was weird. Very weird. I saw some weird price action there on the second chart. It's kind of weird. But yeah, like I said, SMCI bullish if this does happen. Looking at C3AI, let's see this name on the daily. Yeah, it's kind of trying to bid up here. C3AI Technology, their financials are not that good. They've been declining here on their earnings, right? They beat, but it's a downward trend. You guys can see that. And let's see the revenue. Look at this a little bit annually. Yeah, not bad. But the revenue is increasing, right? But they're not profitable yet, and they're losing money. And it's like each time it's increasing here, how much money they're losing. So it's like they're not doing a good job in their expenses. Let's see that there. Let's see, year to date it's down 25%. Let's see, month, 3 months, 44%, etc. But yeah, not looking too good here. But I'm looking at this on a daily chart and more of an hourly. We are seeing now some type of upward curl, right? This was an important high, so we can put an anchored VWAP here, and looks like we are getting above that, so showing that there's some buyers here. What initiated this upward momentum was this low here, so we were kind of indecisive for a little bit. Now it's kind of like what the triple Qs are seeing, right? The majority of these tech stocks are seeing this movement. If we break above here, so for example, let's say a break decisive here of $27 would be a long here on C3AI, because we would see that upper momentum, it would go down, and let's see here, upper momentum, and break above, form a higher high, which is what we want to see, right? A high above this prior high. So a break above $27 flat would be sufficient condition for me to go long. More of a swing trade, hold it towards $30, try to challenge the pretty much highs here, intraday highs, and zooming out on a daily chart, kind of take some profit there. That's where the next resistance is at, and possibly towards $33. So yeah, we'll have to see. Obviously they're just projections, but obviously if we do find resistance here, we don't see that, and we fall back below the 200, you may see some further downside. AMD on the hourly, really strong name. It's kind of just pulling back now. How would I say this? It's kind of taking a break from the intense move that it's been having here on AMD. If you could, kind of take analysis here from this all-time high, we've been staying below it, so it's signifying here the bearish momentum that we've been seeing on the name. We've been below it, so the average short participant here is actually winning money, so we gotta wait. We actually, let's see, so we've been holding above the 50, kind of consolidating in between it. We kind of fell below it the prior day yesterday, but we've been bidding up, so there's some buyers here around this zone. We've been holding above the 200, which is very strong indicator, so that's showing that the longer term here right now so far on these overall hourly charts, or we can even go on a 4-hour, but there's no reason, just honestly just use a daily. We're seeing buyers here, but now we're kind of seeing this could be seen as a pullback, right? So what I would like to see here on AMD, let's see, this is probably going to match the support level that we held here, right? Let's see, from this low, yep, exactly there, right? So I'm telling you guys, this is not any joke. So right now we're just consolidating, we're pinching, kind of, you guys see this, right? We're down, we're up, etc. This is what we're seeing in the name, right? We're doing this, right? So we would like to see is a breakup of that, and that would instantiate the long side. Or if we do see a reversal, then it would be below this $134 towards the overall here. Let's see, let's take this off. So it would be a downward move towards the 200 EMA if this level does break here. So right now I wouldn't be trading AMD here on the, because pretty much it's within the range, right? You look at this on a longer term, it's within this range. It's not looking bullish at all so far, right? The longer term is bullish, but right now kind of stay away from it because there's consolidation, unless, like I said, you are a range trader and you profit from that. So that's what I'd be looking there on AMD. I mean, just compare that to, let's say, one of the biggest names that's been moving here, SOFI, right? Nothing but that, right? Intense upward momentum. You guys know that my price target on SOFI is towards $24. That's where we'll find the next area of resistance, and let's say we are leading towards that price. We're actually pulling back a little bit today on the day, finally seeing some pullback here. My final price target is $24. You guys know why. If you guys seen my video, it's because that's the next area of resistance, the next liquidity zone where sellers may come in, and people who've been long, right, ever since, let's say, these important levels of $17, $18 are looking to take some profit off, right? It's been a very nice run, and honestly I'd be looking to take profits too, right? If we go towards that next area of resistance, right, lock in some profits, some of the position, and kind of extend the stop losses, kind of see if we're maybe going to see some more upside, right? But at that zone, it's generally seen to see some short-term resistance at those levels. So yeah, final price target still is on SOFI towards $24. You guys can see very, very strong uptrend. We've been kind of holding above the 200 as well. We've only come and tested the 50. I mean, held it quite well 2 times, so June 17th and around June 23rd, and we've been nothing but going towards the upside. We actually came back on a pullback test, $17 here on July 1st, and we've been bidding up. So measuring just from this high, the long was at the break here of $18, and we've been going up ever since then, right? So very important name here, very bullish. And yeah, what can I say? Like I said, it's being factored here with the rate cuts. I believe the Fed will cut rates by the end of the year, probably towards September. We'll have to see a little bit more on what they decide, but yeah, we'll see that upper momentum. Cloudflare now is kind of consolidating between this area here, so you could say, let's see, kind of seeing some pause in the price action, some correction here through time. After seeing this explosive move, like I said, the majority of these cloud names are being heavily bought, especially after the dip here from April, the April lows, because like I said, they're not really going to be too heavily impacted by the tariffs. So quite nice to see the upper momentum here on these names. Let's see, Net, let's see, Snowflake, same thing's been bought up quite heavily. I remember this name when it crashed. I think they had, it was up here, and then they freaking saw a very heavy crash, and then we saw the April low, so pretty much everything got cheap. I mean, look at Snowflake at $121. It's pretty much almost doubled that pretty close to that there in Snowflake there. And yeah, I saw a nice downward bounce there. After that movement, it's been nothing but going upside, as well as ASML. Let's see. It's kind of taking a pause too on the hourly. We've been holding quite well the 200. That was a nice area to buy on June 20th, right there. Bid up. It's about pulling back. It's finding some, support around this area. We'll have to see a break above that. So honestly, like a 805 break would instantiate the long side again here on ASML. Looking at Taiwan Semi, closely following Nvidia. You guys can see this, one of the best names to invest in, honestly, I believe. Taiwan Semi, it's been bidding up. Actually went above this area of resistance ever since then. On June 24th, it's been nothing but a long. And it's been, pulling back towards a 50. Buys, finds buyers, goes towards a 50, and is now finding some type of buyers here, having some time, difficult time getting above it here, like expanding away from it, showing that buyers did come in effect here. But TSM has been nothing but a long ever since June 24th, and we've had pullbacks here, especially here and here. So we'll see. Maybe this is another pullback. We'll have to see. They're looking at Intel. This one's been really finding a lot of buyers, a lot of bids here. This thing's been heavily underfavored here because with all the AI advancements, they've been behind on AI. Quite realistically, they have been, especially, they had all this conflict with, their CEO, Pat Gelsinger, and, they've been having a lot of movements here with CEOs. They haven't found that individual that can, you can say, turn the company around and, kind of give it a new outlook. They've been getting a lot of support from the government, but obviously it all comes down to the leadership in the company, right? And I think that's why investors, kind of pulled away from this name a little bit. We saw that downward, intense selling because, without concisive leadership, especially now in AI, and this new innovation that we're seeing, this boom, it's important to have that leadership. And without that, Intel, it's just been declining, and there's no reason for investors right now to buy the name. But looking at this and on a question here of swing trade kind of, we saw a strong down decline, and we could still say that we're within a range. We kind of broke above it at the $22.83 break, so I'd say maybe a $24 break would be a long on Intel. But like I said, as an investment, maybe it all depends on the leadership, the news, the fundamentals now. Here, Micron as well, seeing very, very nice momentum here. Actually had a little bit of a arrow here signaling the buying. So we found buyers exactly at this anchored VWAP from Wednesday, June 4th, when we've been holding. So we found there was support here. So we're bouncing up already. Maybe put some anchored VWAP. Looks like we're finally above that as well. So maybe some buyers are picking up the name. It was kind of within a range, indecisive since let's say June 26. About like a week, 2 weeks around there was indecisive, but now it's starting to see that momentum towards upside. There are Micron, and we still have a lot of price targets towards upside on this name. I believe this name was heavily favored as well by institutions. You guys know that on the Uplift Markets newsletter, we posted it as the trade of the week, I believe around 3 weeks ago, before we had this intense upward move, and it's been nothing but upside, right? You guys seeing this, there we go, where we found support exactly at the breakout, pretty much when we saw this nice upward move. It's kind of giving us an opportunity to buy the name. Here it's finding that resistance exactly as well at a confluence level, important $120 level, which is also an important psychological level, and it's coming into effect here with this dynamic area of support here on Micron, right? We still have a lot of bullishness towards that name there. So yeah, pretty much that's what the overall market is looking like. We look at the triple Qs, we are still, you could say, indecisive. We look at a 5-minute chart, so we're trying to break above here. So it's like we are trying to break above and see some upward momentum. Kind of pressed the wrong button here, but yeah, like I said, maybe a decisive break. We saw this at around 9:25 on the 5-minute. We're seeing a lot of indecisiveness here, but hopefully we see upward momentum and we see a decisive break above here, which will allow us to propulse ourselves towards upside here on the triple Qs. It's been quite indecisive, but we know we can't, we can't undeter the nice momentum it's been having, and go against the trend, right? Why would I be short the triple Qs if the longer term trend is telling me to go towards the upside, right? We're above the 50, above the 200. Even if you went short, for example, let's say you went short here, well, you immediately got liquidated and, you know, short squeeze, I guess, here on the next day. And then you say, okay, I'm gonna go short again at the break of the 50. It's bearish, right? You go down, right? But then you get liquidated again. Look at this, right? You would have been pretty much losing, right? Don't go against the trend. It's important to identify the trend. In this case, the overall market isn't an uptrend. You look at the daily at longer term time frames, right? You zoom out instead of, you know, filter out the noise, and we see that we are in an uptrend. We are in a bull market. There's no reason to fear, right? So why would I be short the market? There's no reason for a swing trade towards the short side, right? Unless you're really experienced and you know, you factor in intraday shorts, right, which is possible, right? I'm not saying you can't make money going short, but generally, if you want a simple strategy, just follow the trend, follow the market, follow the trend. That's what we've been seeing, holding above the 50, holding above the 200, and now we're kind of seeing that confusion, a little bit of consolidation. But like I said, a break above here would signify the long side here on the overall triple Qs, right? So other than that, that will be all for today. Hopefully you guys have an amazing trading day, and, you know, stay, you know, on the lookout here for the next video that will be uploaded tomorrow, Wednesday, which will be going deeper into analysis on the stock that, you know, many of you guys have a lot of interest in. And apart from that, we'll also be looking at the options flow of the stock, and also looking at potential trade setups that could be executed through options or through stocks. So apart from that, like I said, be careful, subscribe to the channel as well, and always stay uplifted. And don't let the markets whip you guys